Is it possible or even conceivable that just by giving someone a role that you need them to play and a set of characteristics and traits, we can gain commitment and compliance instantly? That's exactly what I'm just about to show you, which is my unique persuasion strategy called role projection. So before we get into this strategy and how it works, I want to give you an example. And that example is if you're on a first date or meeting someone for the very first time. Now, during that meeting, that person stops you and says, "Can I tell you something?" And with that, you say, "Yeah." And they say to you, "Do you know what? What I really like about you is the fact you're such an amazing listener. It feels like I could tell you anything. It's like I've known you for years." Now, 30 minutes later, that meeting's over and that first date is over. However, in 2 days' time, you get a phone call asking if you'd like to have a second date or have a second meeting. Now, when you show up, what is that person from the first date ensured that you do more than anything else during that person's company? Well, of course, they gave you a characteristic of a great listener. Now, if you respect the person and you like the label that they've given you, the characteristic, then that will ensure that you play the role of a fantastic listener. How easy is this? So think about it. How many times have you been called a star? How many times have you been called a legend? Can you be a legend and go and get that from the printer? Would you be a star and make me a cup of tea? What these people have actually done inadvertently is give you a role to play because you like being called a star and a legend and you respect the person that's giving you the role. So how does role projection work and how can we use it in business? Well, it all comes down to one thing really, and that's a label. A label that we give someone that they respect and they value. So in order of persuasiveness, I'm going to give you some examples of how you can use this in business to convert more clients and to get commitment instantly. So first of all, let's have a look at someone's nationality. Typically, people are proud of where they were born. If you're an American, you're patriotic, you like to be American. If you're a Brit, you're the same. If you're a German, you like to be a German. Okay, so how can we use this to gain commitment from someone instantly? So I'm going to give you an example. All we have to do is to use that nationality and as a label. So as a Brit, I'm sure that planning for your future retirement is of some priority. Well, yeah, of course. Now, as an American, I'm sure that planning for your retirement is a high priority. Well, yes, of course. And as a German, I'm sure that you're planning for your retirement is of high priority. Yes, of course. So can you see that by utilising the label of a nationality, you get that person to play the role of a good Brit, a good American, and a good German? So in order of persuasiveness, that would be number 4. Moving up the scale to number 3, we can now use someone's job role. And this is where it starts to get really, really interesting. So let me give you an example. What labels could we use that have a job title? So we've got managing director, we've got sales director, we've got business owner, and all the others as well. So let me give you an example. Now, as a managing director, I'm sure that the welfare of your staff has to be of high importance. Well, yeah, of course. What are the implications if that managing director says no? Firstly, he's a bad managing director. And secondly, the welfare of his staff is of no significance to him or her. So therefore, they have to say yes, and that's how you get commitment and compliance instantly. They are now playing the role of a good and a conscientious managing director. What about a finance director? Now, as a financial director, I'm sure that if we could show you how we could reduce costs, but also increase profitability, that would be of huge significance to you. Well, yes, of course it would. Great! Can you see how this works? So now all we have to do is to show that finance director how we reduce costs and how we increase profitability. And what have they said? That is of high significance to them. They now play the role of a conscientious financial director, ensuring that you get to the yes response. This is amazing. So what if it's a sales director? Now, as a sales director, I'm sure if we could increase the conversion rate of your sales staff, not only would it be important to them, it would also be important to the business. Well, yes, of course, Gary. Yes. Amazing. So long as when we get to the end of the appointment, we can show them how we can increase conversion rates and convince them of that. Is there any logical reason why that person would say no? Because what are the implications if they do? Well, they're a bad sales director. They don't care about conversion rates and they don't care about the significance of that to the business. We've now just given that person a label of a sales director, ensuring that they say yes. And now we get to one of the most persuasive labels that you can give anyone, and that would be their social role. For example, a mother, a father, a parent. Let me give you a couple of examples. This is something that I use as part of my keynote speech. So there could be 200, 300, 400 people in the room. And what I'm looking for is someone that's relatively young, someone that I would assume doesn't have children. And I will ask them, do you have children? They'll say no. I say, you've got plans to have children? Well, no, not really, but I will do in the future. Okay, great. So then, and this is vitally important, it's crucial. As a future loving parent, I'm sure that your kids' further education will be of high priority. Just let me repeat that. As a future loving parent, I'm sure your kids' further education will be of huge priority. Well, yes, of course it is. Hang on a minute. This person doesn't have children, not even thinking about having children, but because I've given them the label of what? A loving, future loving parent ensures that they say yes to the question that I ask, which was, as a future loving parent, I'm sure that your kids' further education will be of huge priority. Well, yes, of course. What are the implications if they say no? Well, firstly, in front of 200 people, they're going to say, no, I'm a crap parent. Secondly, that their kids' further education is of no priority or significance to them whatsoever, which ensures that you get the yes. But why? Because we gave them a label. And now we get really persuasive. What if we were able to give someone a characteristic as a label? Let me give you an example. I'm going to sit down with a business owner, and as part of my early questioning I might ask, so can I ask, what's the decision making process here? Is it ultimately your final decision? And the business owner, let's say, says, well, yes, of course, Gary, of course it is. Yes, I'm the big cheese. The buck stops with me. Now listen, I'm going to say, great, I'm really pleased you said that, because I'm sure it's the same for your sales team. There's nothing worse, is there, when you get to the end of an appointment and then you find out that you've got to run it past a board, got to run it past a partner. So at least I'm sat with the right person. Thank you. Wow. What have we now ensured doesn't happen? And what's one of the biggest objections that you get as a salesperson when you get to the end of the appointment and they say, I've got to run it past the board, I've got to run it past the partner, I've got to ask the wife. Yep. So what we do here is we give that person a role of the ultimate decision maker. And now, what's the worst objection that we get in sales or of people with persuasion? We get to the end, we've done a great presentation, and then we hear the dreaded words, don't we? Yeah, love what you've done there, Gary. However, I need some time to think about it. Oh, how many times have you heard that? How frustrating is it? And we know full well that the best time to think about anything is while you're sat in the room. So how can we avoid this from happening? Well, there's a thing about human nature, and that is if you tell someone they're just about to do something, it normally prevents them from doing it. Let me give you an example and how we can use role projection to get this person to make a decision. So before I go and ask for the business, I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to do it in this way. So, Mr. Business Owner, if you don't mind me asking, have you got any queries? No. You got any questions? No. And you're happy for me to move on? Absolutely. Great. I'm really pleased you said that, because there's nothing worse, is there? You go through a presentation and right at the very last minute you hear those dreaded words, I want to think about it. I know for some of you that will make you shudder. However, just let me go back. I've asked this person, have you got any queries? No. You got any questions? No. So you're happy for me to move on? Absolutely. And now I'm praising that person for telling me that. Great, I'm really pleased you said that, because there's nothing worse, is there? You get to the end and rather than asking questions or having queries, you hear those dreaded words which are, I want to think about it. Why am I doing that? The reason I'm doing that is because if I've got good rapport with someone, then often I will show them how ridiculous it sounds to me when they tell me they've got no queries, they've got no questions, and they're happy for me to move on. But yet, at the end, they're still going to come up with this objection of, I want to think about it. So I drop my voice, make it sound a little bit goofy, and I show them the jazz hands. However, for some of you, that's not going to work, and you'll feel uncomfortable doing it. So let's make it more professional. So, Mr. Business Owner, are you, just out of curiosity, have you got any queries? No. You got any questions? No. And you're happy for me to move on? Absolutely. Okay, great. The reason I'm asking is because if there are queries and questions, it's better that we get them out now rather than you feel that when we get to the end, you have to say, I want to think about it. Wow. I'm going to tell you that when I have placed this into clients' businesses and got their teams to implement it, whether it's the goofy style or whether it's the more professional approach, it has dropped, I want to think about it, by 42%. I'll repeat that, 42%. Now, if you're watching this and you're a salesperson, if I could reduce I want to think about it by 42% by you saying I want to think about it, or if you've got any queries or questions, it's probably easier if we get them out now rather than you feel that you have to say I want to think about it. If I could show you that you could reduce I want to think about it by 42%, would you do it? And if you are a sales director or a business owner watching this, would you expect your team to be able to sit there and say, any queries, any questions, you happy for me to move on? Great, and I'm really pleased you said that, because there's nothing worse when we get to the end of an appointment, rather than asking the questions, you feeling that you have to say, I want to think about it. Now that is how to use role projection in a selling environment to gain commitment and to gain compliance instantly.